Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. This week we've got episode 23, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Jeff Hands of Steel Neal. Before we get into all of that though, I'm just going to quickly recap last week, UFC 256. This streak of poor predicting continues. 2 consecutive weeks now without even managing to collect a badge on verdict. We went 2 wins, 4 losses and 1 kind of draw, 1 break even on tips. We did lose the multi. And then we hit just one of our 3 single plays. We hit the Club Swanson pick at $2.25. Best and worst pick of the night. My best verdict pick, although a loss or draw, would have to be Figueroa via a decision. I did score the fight in favour of the champ without the point deduction, so I did score it a draw. And, I did mention that I thought it would be the best flyweight fight of all time if it did hit the cards, which by and large everyone's agreeing that it was. You can't blame me for blowing my own trumpet with that one. With my current form, I've got to try to hold on to the highs. My worst call of the night, I'm going to say Moicano. I did flag the risk of Fisayo finishing Moicano in the first round. If Renato came out, started slowly like he tends to do. But he didn't, he looked really good, crisp striking from the start. And Rafael put that boy to sleep. Very, very impressive. Notable mentions for my worst picks, because it got that bad, would be the Jacare and Ferguson selections, both way off, but lots of other people were on those 2 with me, so I'll cut myself an inch of slack. Of those 2 results, I'm more shocked with Holland finishing Souza than Oliveira dominating Ferguson in the way he did, to be honest, but both wild outcomes in my opinion. In all honesty though, both of those guys winning, probably better for the future of the lightweight and middleweight divisions, a bit of fresh meat at the top, and a couple of cool matchups to go into the future. Anyway, looking ahead to this week now, I'm going to mix it up a bit from my last few videos, try to ramble a little less, be slightly more concise. I'll probably spend a little longer still on the main and co-main, but with another treat of a 7-fight main card on verdict, there's plenty of content to get through. So without further ado, we'll start at the bottom. We've got Anthony Pettis versus Alex Morono. Pettis 1.21 times on verdict and $1.40 at the bookies. Morono 5.82 times and $2.90. What a great slating to start a main card. 2 battle-tested veterans. Morono, a career welterweight, whereas Pettis has kind of found himself fighting from 145 right up to this 170 weighted bout. Kind of both guys really similarly framed as well, kind of comfy welterweights. Neither guy cuts too much weight, and both guys do similar things, both extremely powerful knockout artists who love to stand in the pocket and engage in that firefight, really entertaining guys. And, as hard as Pettis hits, I honestly think Morono hits harder. He has concrete in his fists. But of the 2, Pettis is the faster guy, especially as he has spent most or lots of his career in the lighter weight classes. He's also the more dynamic striker. Morono will throw the inside and outside leg kick, go upstairs on occasion. He is a Taekwondo black belt. But Pettis definitely has the deeper bag of tricks on the feet. Morono isn't an overly athletic guy, but he is just one of those hard-working guys, can take a good shot and has a good fighting brain. He's got a good IQ, he's fighting out of a good camp. He can be the pressure and volume guy, but then also very well poised on the counter, loves to whip that check left hook on the back foot. Pretty defensively sound too, right guard up, always on the back step. He also has good jiu-jitsu, better than Anthony, I believe. 6 career wins via submission, he's good on top. And then also threatens off his back as well, has that guillotine in his arsenal on his opponent's takedown attempts. And to be honest, he's currently in the midst of a career resurgence. Won 4 of his last 5 fights since moving camps to Fortis MMA. And that one loss there being a really quick knockout loss to Chaos Williams, who we are seeing later on this card. And I don't think that loss is too much of a knock on him. Chaos hits like a truck, and his 4 wins in this streak have been super impressive. Whereas on the contrary, Pettis is kind of all over the shop. 2 wins, 3 losses in his last 5. Up and down weight classes as well. And if you're talking his 2 wins, one of those was a flashy knockout over Wonderboy in a fight he was getting pieced up in. And the other win being his last fight, a really close decision over Cowboy, which could have gone either way. I don't really like it. Saif Saud has got Morono going, bringing his boxing along in spades with a focus on straighter strikes, improving his head movement, to bring up those defensive numbers where he has been lacking. And I simply don't think that he should be this big of an underdog on verdict right now. So for those reasons, I'm going to take him. And you guys might be surprised here. I'm going to play a round 3 submission at 61.91 times. Will be my biggest verdict bet to cash if we do so. A knockout's probably more likely. These guys will go toe-to-toe at some point and swing for the fences, but Pettis has never actually been put out cold. He has been TKO'd twice, once by Holloway with a body shot, and then had that corner stoppage against Ferguson a few fights back, where he has been subbed twice. Most recently only 2 fights ago, although it was at lightweight. I do think Morono has the better jits here. Although he doesn't shoot takedowns very frequently, he did land 3 in his last fight. Has a nasty guillotine, like I've already mentioned, on his takedown defenses. Plus, Pettis is probably the better overall striker, so Morono having a ground-based game plan would make a ton of sense. I do understand if some of you out there go with Anthony. He is a dangerous guy, has fought far better competition, but I don't rate his recent performances, and his career trajectory feels to be on the decline. And regardless of all of that anyway, the verdict pricing just offers no value on his side whatsoever, so I'm happy to take a punt here, take a shot on the Morono sub. Moving along, Julian Robertson versus Tyler Santos. Robertson, favourite on verdict 1.47 times, but $1.91 slight underdog at the bookies. Tyler Santos 3.11 times on verdict and $1.86 at the bookies. The UFC website don't actually have this matchup or their stats up, so I'm scraped an image off the web for you guys here so you can get a look. Anyway, straight to the point with this one. It pains me to say, but I'm going to be taking Julian Robertson here. I really love Tyler Santos. She's a fun fighter to watch, a dangerous kickboxer, good hand speed, good power, plus a nasty little Muay Thai game in the clinch. Her single loss as a pro came to Romero Borello in her UFC debut, which I completely put down to bright light jitters. Her next fight she came out, beat Molly McCann convincingly, who is better than Romero Borello anyway. But Robertson is going to be too durable and too good for her here, in my opinion. Julian Robertson has grown up in the UFC. She's only 25 years old, and although Tyler Santos is only 26, she hasn't had that experience at the top. This is going to be Julian's 9th fight with the company. She's had 14 total as a pro, plus she had 10 fights as an amateur. She's a very, very experienced girl, and she's only looked to be getting better and better. As for her skill set, she is a grappler, a really good one at that. She only just received her BJJ black belt earlier this year, but she's actually notched 6 pro wins via submission. And then, her wrestling is as good as her BJJ, something a lot of jiu-jitsu practitioners struggle to develop and grow into their MMA careers. She's tenacious on the takedowns, always makes sure that they count. She's one of the best fighters in the UFC at gaining control time per takedown. And I think that largely comes down to her patience on the mat. She does smother you in guard, tap away with some shots, but then slowly makes her move to pass. She often threatens an arm or works the body to kind of take the focus of her movement and her positioning, and then she'll slide to side control, slide to mount. She's very patient and very adept on the ground. Whilst they're on the feet, Santos is obviously going to have the advantage, but I just can't imagine that Julian won't get this to the floor. Santos is strong, 83% takedown defense, but where she does get floored, from what I've seen on my review of the tape, is kind of when her balance is offset. It's not that great. She is most susceptible to the trip takedowns or the high single legs, which Julian loves to secure. She's got both of those kind of attacks in her arsenal to test the balance of Santos. She's also adept at kind of catching a leg or shooting the hips when her opponent kicks, which will be live in this matchup with Tyler using her kicks so much. And then once on the ground, I don't love Tyler's defense off her back. I don't think her BJJ is dangerous. And although her defense from guard is okay, like I said, Julian is always looking to pass and to get to a more dominant spot. And from what I've seen, when Santos has her guard pass, she's pretty much incapable of regaining it. And I likely see her getting mounted in this fight, or then rolling out and giving her back, where Robertson's going to flatten her out and probably choke her, because Robertson is a finisher. She's finished 5 of her 6 UFC wins, which is something you don't see all that often in women's MMA. So yeah, Julian Robertson for mine. Although I really like Tyler Santos, it won't be that choked up if she does get the win here, but I'm taking Robertson via second round submission at 5.40 times. Pretty self-explanatory with the method there based on my analyses. I've gone with the second round, as 4 of her 7 finishes as a pro have come in that middle frame, and 3 of those were submissions. So yeah, like it. Next one along, Marcin Tiburo versus Greg Hardy. Tiburo, 2.64 times on verdict and $1.96 at the bookies. Greg Hardy, 1.61 times on verdict and $1.81 at the bookies. Alright, tips straight from the top again. We're going to be going with Greg Hardy here. This is a close bout. It probably should be a little bit closer on verdict. And with Tabura being slightly sized underdog. He's probably the value straight up play on verdict. But if you look into the win conditions, he's only 4.10 times to win a decision, which is his win condition in my opinion, his most likely win condition. He's only finished 2 of his 12 UFC fights. They were way back as well in only his second and third octagon appearances. If you look further back through his career, 13 stoppage victories, 7 TKOs, 6 subs, but just very few at this higher level and none recently. So even as the overall favourite, taking Greg Hardy at 2.23 times via knockout or 6.16 times via decision doesn't leave you missing too much XP anyway. As for their skill sets, let's split some skills. Tiburo has the better grappling chops. He hits takedowns at a solid 47%, has landed 1 takedown or more in each of his last 3 fights, and he's a black belt in BJJ. But like I said, he doesn't really get too active with it. He prefers to land some ground and pound, often just from guard. Does have some solid top pressure, but not frequently looking to pass. His last 6 takedowns have resulted in 20 minutes of control time, which is impressive. If you look to him on the feet as well, he has improved his head movement and overall footwork. He looks to be fitter, but is still susceptible to being backed up, which is Hardy's game. He's a front foot fighter, will be the pressure guy here, and carries advantages on the feet in speed and power, in my opinion. Hardy's a monstrous man. He hits like a freight train and moves really, really well. Even after taking a ton of leg kicks from Yorgan De Castro in that fight, he managed to get around relatively lightly, and he is so young in his MMA career, and you can see him getting better from fight to fight. In reality as well, if you're looking at his record, he should be 8-1 from his UFC and Dana White's Contender Series fights. He was DQ'd against Crowder for a dumb knee. Inexperienced guy. That stuff kind of happens. He was winning that fight comfortably. And then, of course, the no contest against Ben Sassoli for utilising a puffer between rounds. Again, a sign of inexperience. So Alexander Volkov is the only guy to actually beat him, which is wild because Volkov is an absolute jet and he would smoke Tiburo. So, although Tiburo is no slouch in the striking department, I think Hardy's frame, power and movement will overwhelm him. The difference will be if Tiburo can secure the takedowns, and if he can, this heavily swings in his favour. But if you're looking through, Hardy does have 83% takedown defense. He hasn't really had good wrestlers or grapplers in there with him. To put that to the test, Juan Adams is probably the best wrestler he's fought, but that fight lasted all of 45 seconds. And the fact is, Hardy's a really strong guy, really strong in close. His athletic pedigree as a Pro Bowl defensive end kind of puts my mind at rest about him being able to fight off the grappling attempts, even though he hasn't been tested that much as of yet. And even if he does get taken down, he's a really explosive guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he forces a few stand-ups regardless. So, Greg Hardy to come forward, pour it on early, make the grappling a moot point. First round knockout at 2.23 times, plus the bonus 100 XP if we hit the correct round. Tiburo has lost 4 fights via knockout. Hardy has won 6 fights via knockout, 5 of those in the first round. So let's go with that one. Marlon Morris versus Rob Font. Marlon Morris, 1.19 times and $1.63. Rob Font, 6.29 times and $2.23. A bantamweight showcase here. The first of 2 top-of-the-table contests at 135, with Aldo and Vera sliding in at the co-main. We'll talk about them a little bit later. As for these guys, Morris returning only 2 months after getting TKO'd by Corey Sandhagen with a head kick and follow-up, and Rob Font giving us the first look at him in 2020 since doing his ACL in December of last year. Marlon's last couple of performances have got me questioning just how good he is. His rise to the top was so fast. 3 kind of ridiculous first-round finishes over really high-level competition. But ever since then, he just hasn't really given me confidence, especially over fights that get extended past the first round, He started well against Cejudo, but when he couldn't get him out of there, Henry overcame. That's not really a knock. Cejudo is elite, but then a really close decision to Aldo, which I scored for Jose. And then a second-round knockout loss to Sandhagen in a fight where he couldn't find his rhythm or range, and the unorthodox nature of Corey's game on the outside just proved too puzzling for him. The strength of schedule is definitely there. He's been fighting the better competition competition between he and Rob Font by far. But I feel like if he can't hurt you early, he gives you every chance to beat him. He is a really powerful guy, kickboxer, thunderous leg kicks, as well as the ability to hit your lid with it too. And he's fast, in and out movement, plus the actual hand speed. But he does wing his punches for the most part. Rob Font is a really pretty technical striker. And his hands are also fast, slightly slower than Marlon's, but he throws the straighter punches, and that, combined with his reach advantage, will mean that he is the one landing first. He does also have a kicking game. Marlon's is better, but he does dig that teep to the body. He can also go upstairs, like when he knocked out Thomas Almeida. As for how this fight plays out stylistically, I think they're going to fight at a distance. Both guys like the range game. Font, due to his technicality and his frame, and then Morris, due to his kickboxing background. And if I'm being completely honest, I think Rob Font has the better tools to win a fight like that. Morris has the power, especially in that first round, and if he manages to catch Font in a flurry with one of those hooks, it could spell trouble. But Font is a durable guy. I've only seen him hurt once in his entire career, and that was when Pedro Munoz caught him in the pocket and then finished him with a guillotine, which happens to be his only career loss via finish. His head movement really is first class, has that boxing pedigree. He always rolls with the shot. I think if Font can counter or nullify Marlon's leg kicks and get through that first frame, he's going to be able to keep Morris on his heels, bust him up with his jabs, and that 1-2, that right straight is money, as well as work the body. Font works the midsection so well. About 30% of his strikes landed are in that region, and we've seen Morris hurt to the guts before. Plus, Marlon has a suspect gas tank. The body shots will further deplete that, whereas Rob Font has unlimited cardio, ridiculous volume, and can turn it up when need be to edge around. So that's my pick, a big underdog. Rob Font at 6.29 times to win a decision over Marlon Morris at 9.96 times. Morris has only been to split decisions in the UFC when he or his opponent hasn't found a finish. He never leaves his stamp on it. Plus, I find that his opponents have never really ramped it up either, where Font is plenty capable of doing just that. Plus, something I didn't talk about above, but Rob is the better abled wrestler of the two. Handy ground game to boot. I could definitely see takedowns mixed in there for him. A big X factor is Font coming into this fight, or he's coming into his first fight since rehabbing his ACL. But who have we seen recently that's done that and overcome that? It was Cub Swanson last weekend, his first fight after doing his ACL, who looked amazing. So I'm good with that. Obviously, I do think Morris is the deserved favourite in this matchup, but 1.19 times, are you serious? No way should he be that short. So, we're fading Marlon Morris. Alright, next fight along, the featured bout under the co-main, Michel Pejo versus Chaos Williams. Michel, 2.33 times on verdict. Slight underdog, slight favourite at the bookies, $1.80. Chaos Williams, 1.75 times on verdict and $1.98 at the bookies. Michel Pejo, man, he showed us such a complete version of himself in his last fight against Zelim Imadaev. We all know that he is a capoeira-based striker, very unorthodox, very flashy, super entertaining, but that has led him to conditioning problems previously, highlighted best in that loss to Tristan Connolly, which was really disappointing and kind of gross viewing for him. But like I mentioned, in that last fight, he still showed us moments of craziness, but was far more conservative, far more reserved than ever before, and it resulted in his best performance, He was doing enough weird shit to not let Imadaev get a read on him, but then also remaining extremely defensively responsible and getting off plenty of volume himself without gassing. His movement and his defense was beautiful in that fight. Footwork, lateral movement, head movement, it was all on point. His striking defense was 75%, for God's sake. And Zelim Imadaev isn't a nobody on the feet. 8 wins in his MMA career, all by knockout, and an incredible amateur boxing record of 59 wins for 1 loss. And if you're looking at the frames, Imadaev really similar dimensions to Chaos Williams. Both guys standing 6 foot. Imadaev with a 76-inch reach, Chaos 77-inch reach. And Pereira, even at a reach disadvantage in that Zelim fight, still remains safe on the outside of range and looked the longer fighter. I think he can do the same here. Chaos Williams is a very dangerous customer. thunderous one-shot knockout power. I'm not underestimating that at all. For that reason, he's always going to be a chance to win this fight and win any fight for that matter. He has Derek Lewis type ability to take the bout at any moment. But for him at this stage in his career, with only 57 seconds of octagon time across 2 fights, I think he might just be a little bit underdone. He has won 3 decisions on the regional scene, and his conditioning held up okay in that most recent 3-rounder against Jeremy Holloway. But his lone loss as a pro is a decision, and that was to a debutant. I'm not trying to make the point that he is inexperienced. 12 pro fights and actually 15 amateur fights, which is more than usual for sure. But he hasn't got that experience at this level, experience that Pejo has had. And I feel if Michel can extend this fight, it's his to lose. Pejo's been in the octagon for almost 45 minutes now. In terms of splitting some skills, Chaos has a nice jab, but I think Pejo utilises straighter attacks more frequently and to better effect. Williams often comes in attacking with wider strikes and leaving his chin exposed to the counter. Both guys kick to the legs a lot, but I feel Pejo goes to the body a bit more, works the clinch game and knees more as well. And then for the grappling, Chaos is more of an opportunist with his takedown attempts, whereas Pejo actually does shoot takedowns to threaten the level change and show another look. His control mightn't be the best on the ground, but it does just give his opponents something else to worry about. And if you're looking through the stats, he has actually landed takedowns in each of his last 3 fights. Another thing to note is Michel's takedown defense sitting at 100%. Hard to see Williams putting him on his back. Plus, Michel has the more dangerous jiu-jitsu regardless. So to my prediction, it should be a fun fight. It could last a minute. It could last the full 15. Both guys are finishers and plenty capable of doing just that at any time. But I feel like Michel's striking defense is just next level. I reckon he can avoid that big power of Chaos, plus roll with and take what he needs to. He is a durable guy. Only 1 knockout loss on the resume from 37 pro fights. And then I think out-volume, out-move, and perhaps even out-grapple Chaos Williams to a decision victory. That outcome is currently 5.56 times, taking Michel as a slight underdog here. On verdict, extremely enticing prospect for me. And that deep water will be key, as to the bodywork and the clinch scenarios to try and wear on Williams' gas tank, perhaps expose that limited octagon time as the fight rolls on. Alright, co-main, we're doing alright for time. Let's see how we go. Jose Aldo versus Marlon Chito Vera. Aldo, 1.71 times and $1.64. Very closely represented. And Marlon Vera, 2.41 times and $2.21. Alrighty. A step down for Jose Aldo here, a massive step up for Marlon Vera. I love Chito. A very entertaining striker, busy footwork, dynamic with his angles, and then crafty BJJ game as well. 8 career wins via submission. And you remove that decision loss to Song Yudong, which was a very close fight and controversial decision. The verdict scorecards have it going Chito's way comfortably. You remove that and he is on a 6-fight finishing streak, 7-fight total win streak. He is very capable, but there are just a few key things about Marlon Vera that I don't think bode well for him in this matchup. Let me break it down like that. First thing, the frequency that he gets hit and hit hard when entering the pocket. He's an outside fighter, very busy, very light on his feet, but then he will step in and try to work the pocket as well with knees and elbows. Aldo is extremely good at countering guys in that scenario. At times when you see Aldo standing completely still, he is just looking for that read on his opponent's entry, seeing where their head moves off to, and if they drop their guard to strike, and Vera always drops his guard on that step in, on that offense. He tries to come up with an uppercut. I see Aldo getting a read off that. The second thing, Chito exaggerates his reactions to feints, Aldo is often very happy to be the counter striker, and like I said just before, he tends to stand more still when he adopts that role. But when he is the aggressor, he does feint a lot. He rolls his shoulders, he flashes the hands, he fakes the kick, and Vera has a tendency to overreact in response, whether that be kind of countering and returning with his own strikes, pouring out a jab, or getting defensive, which brings me to my third and final point. His natural high guard when he gets defensive and is on the back foot. He almost has his eyes hidden behind his gloves, and it leaves his midsection so wide open for a big body shot, which just happens to be Jose's favourite strike on the front foot. That lunging left hook to the ribs, We've seen him use it throughout his career, especially recently though, and it led to finishes over Moicano and Jeremy Stephens. He even cracked Piotr Jan with it plenty of times in their fight, who similarly to Vera also has that really high guard. Vera is young, he's durable and well-rounded, but kind of with Aldo's takedown defense as well, I don't think Cheeto can floor this fight, and on the feet I think he's marginally outskilled and at a power disadvantage. Aldo is a massive bantamweight, you know. The 3-round nature of this fight also favours Jose Aldo. We know, we've seen his conditioning through those championship rounds really isn't there anymore. So yeah, 3 rounds definitely suits Aldo. I think Jose can counter Cheeto well enough, draw those defensive responses out of him on the feints and kind of make some reads to ultimately hurt him, and likely to the body. And you know, if Cheeto wants to play the kicking game as well, which he will, I hope he bought some shin pads, because we did see the return of Aldo's leg kicks against Jan last time out, and they are scary. So my pick, Jose Aldo by a second round knockout at 5.71 times. Cheeto's never been finished, so it feels a little bit silly, but Aldo has next level power. You know, Cub Swanson, Chad Mendes, the Korean Zombie, Renato Moicano, Jeremy Stephens, all of those guys hadn't been finished by strikes either until they met with the King of Rio. So he might hand Cheeto the first knockout loss of his career. As for the rounds, only 4 of Jose's 17 career KOs have been in the second frame, but I'm playing the middle round as it kind of allows him to accumulate some damage, make the necessary reads to finish this fight. So I like that. Without further ado then, main event. Stephen Thompson versus Jeff Neal. Stephen Thompson 1.28 times on verdict, but the underdog at the bookies $1.99. Jeff Neal 4.63 times on verdict and $1.79 at the bookies. Slight edging there. What an intriguing main event, you know. Kind of a really well placed next step for Jeff Neal on his rise from the Contender Series. And then for Wonderboy, you know, a worthy opponent on the come up to prove he is still capable of, or still belongs at the top of the division and taking out these guys who seem to be next in line. Reasonably long layoffs for both guys here. Neither of them have fought in 2020. Wonderboy, he suffered 2 broken hands after his win against Vicente Luque in November of last year, which kind of forced him onto the sidelines for a few months, but after that he just couldn't get an opponent. He did call out Leon Edwards to no avail, classically. Leon Edwards doesn't take many, and then he finally got this booked. For Jeff Neal, he won 3 fights in 2019, and then he looked to take on Magny mid-year, but then he was obviously cut down with COVID, and after that he actually got really sick, you know. He had like a bloodborne infection or something, but essentially his body went into sepsis. He couldn't drink or retain any fluid, and he actually spent a whole week in a Dallas ICU. Now, that was 5 to 6 months ago. He has ramped up his training gradually. It's hard to see him accepting a fight and kind of entering camp without feeling able to fight, but just a little X factor to highlight there, especially this being a 5-rounder. Now, to breaking down the fight. The switch stance, fleet-footed karate-style fighter in Thompson, no stranger to taking on rangy, powerful southpaws. You know, he fought Darren Till in a 5-rounder, and that was the ultimate chess match on the feet. You know, I think this fight might have many similarities to that one. Thompson's movement, undoubtedly some of the best we've ever seen. His evasiveness, lateral movement, his head movement so swift. His striking defense is superb, and then his speed is ridiculous. You know, Jeff Neal is fast too. Really, really fast hands, but Wonderboy is next level. He has that Robert Whittaker type speed, kind of bouncing lightly on the edge of range and then darting in with attacks. And the speed of his movement inside kind of works to multiply the effects of his shots as well. He isn't an overly powerful striker. He doesn't look to be a powerful guy, but he does catch guys off guard, and he's actually notched 10 knockdowns in his UFC career, which is very impressive. One of the top knockdown rates in welterweight history. The thing, I want to bring up that Till fight a little bit more. The thing about that Till fight that I think actually worked in Wonderboy's favour was Till's desire to also fight on the outside, you know. Till is a kickboxer and Muay Thai guy at heart as well. What that did was that allowed Wonderboy the necessary space to bounce around, work his own karate kicking game, and then use that speed to lunge inside, connect to the body, whilst also having the time to react on the outside to Darren's attacks and avoid them. Jeff Neal doesn't really like space, not at all. He's not going to allow that. And that's largely due to the fact that he doesn't kick too often. When he does, it's usually upstairs. And the lack of regularity in which he throws it actually works to his advantage, in my opinion, as it catches guys off guard more often than not. You can just tell Mike Perry wasn't expecting that kick to come up top in their fight. Anyway, my point is that Neal is primarily a boxer, and I feel like that might pose a different kind of threat to Thompson. And he isn't just a boxer, he's a phenomenal boxer. So crisp with his hands, such tight shots, never looks off balance, has all the angles in the book, thunderous knockout power without ever overextending and going past his hips. You might say to me, what about Vicente Luque? He is by and large a boxer that does really similar things to Neal, stalk forward, cut off the cage, big power in his hands, and Wonderboy absolutely picked him apart. And I have to respect that a little bit, but I did pick Wonderboy in that fight, and that was largely down to Luque's lack of defense. His head movement, non-existent. He isn't that fast on the entry. He doesn't come from different angles to show another look. He's a power guy, entertaining, but he does prefer hooks to jabs. He's very susceptible to being broken down by a striking technician, similar to Paulo Costa in that way. I would make that kind of read between those two. Jeff Neal, on the other hand, has great head movement. He rarely gets caught clean. He's always slipping punches, and then he is both fast on the entry and, like I already mentioned, has all the angles. Plus, he thrives on the straight attacks. The right lead jab and power straight left is his trademark. It's a trademark of lots of southpaws, to be honest. And I feel like those straight attacks are going to do better than what Luque's wide ones did. The last point I wanted to make was the conditioning of these guys and the nature of this 5-round event. Wonderboy has fought 25, the full 25 3 times. He's no stranger to main events and has proven himself at this level. Although Jeff Neal has fought to a 3-round decision 3 times, once in the UFC against Bilal Muhammad, in which his conditioning looked fine in my opinion, and then 2 more on the regional scene, he does have lots of early finishes, so that experience edge slides the ledger ever so slightly towards Wonderboy, but I have to make a pick, and I'm going to go with Jeff Neal here. There is a chance that Wonderboy breaks Neal down from distance, He's always so well prepared for his opponents, but Neal is a technician too. I think his cardio will be fine, because I think he's going to be the one doing the pressuring here, as Darren Till did. I think he's going to cramp the smaller 25-foot cage, also a point towards him, and that's going to help him land his shots, land the bigger shots, and take this on the cards, because Wonderboy is durable, he can take a shot. The only time he's been finished was that Anthony Pettis Superman punch. So, yeah, Neal via a decision at 14.01 times, massive odds, love that. Wonderboy regularly hurting himself in the octagon is something else I considered as well, Like I said at the top of this breakdown, 2 broken hands in his last fight. Previously broken both thumbs in fights before too. I know he broke them in the Masvidal fight, potentially more. I haven't gone back through all that. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that happen again here, Neal creates odd angles with his head movement. He might make Wonderboy land on a rocky part. Maybe that's ridiculous for me to think. But regardless, if you're taking Wonderboy in verdict, he is 1.96 times for a decision win. Likely his win condition, no value at all. He is, however, the slight betting underdog now. Lots of movement on this line since it opened. And he probably is the betting play if you're looking at doing so. He should be the favourite over Jeff Neal. But this is a stay away for me in terms of betting. So, a nice little entry to the betting aspect of this card. Let's get straight into it. The multi per half Annum. We've taken a fair few L's across the last few weeks, so let's turn around. Just a double this week, just 2 legs. We're taking Julian Robertson via submission and Jose Aldo via knockout at $24.68 to 1. If I'm talking about the legs, the Robertson leg, $4.50, that's about right. I wanted $6 for this play, but yeah, had to take the $4.50. And the Aldo leg, probably also just about right, based on Cheeto's durability. I think if you wait, these props will likely both improve in price. I think money might come for Cheeto, and this KO prop might spread to, $5.50 or more. And then I wouldn't be surprised if the Julian sub spreads to $5.50-ish as well, with money coming for Tyler. But, I have to place my bets now for the video and get them out. But wait a day or two and you might find a bit better of a price on that. Single plays. We just got one single play this week. negative 4.17 units across our single plays section. So yeah, we're trying to turn that around nice and slowly, but we're taking Julian Robertson $1.91 straight up. Like I said, if the submission prop does kind of spread to $5.50, $6, I'll play that. But until then, $4.50 is probably about right. As for a couple of these other fights that I considered including Pejo, but that knockout threat of chaos is too worrying. And then at $2.90, Morono isn't value to beat Pettis on the bookies. You know, the verdict line made me have a stab at almost 6 times, but I would want $3 plus to bet it. Moving down, just looking through, Greg Hardy to knock out Marcin Tabura is only $2.50, far too short. You know, and then Tiburo is only $3 to win a decision too, so not much that I like on that fight either. And now Jeff Neal taking favoritism over Wonderboy. Wow. No. Thank you. Thompson should be the favorite. I can't see. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with that line. You know, if Wonderboy continues to widen and gets anywhere near that $2.15, $2.20, that is too much, and perhaps I'll have a play, but, you know, verdict giving us over 4 times for Jeff Neal is the call. Alright, that's the end of the video, guys. Thanks for sticking around this long. It probably is my longest ever, 36 minutes now. We're up for a big break, so enjoy your Christmas, enjoy your break, stay safe. We'll see you in January for Dustin Poirier versus McGregor. What a banger. Hopefully they fill that card out. They should, with 3 weeks of a break. Other than that, cheers for hanging around. Catch up.